Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Here with Cynthia, who has agreed to share her experience with you so you can benefit from her observations and insights as well as her trials and tribulations. Cynthia, how are you today?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Could we start with a little bit about your food background?
Well, about 4 years ago, I had the most successful dieting that I've had, although I've dieted on and off through my life. In the last 4 years, I've lost 50 pounds. I did that through working with a nutritionist with just a kind of a standard American diet. And then I gained 25 of it back. Then I moved to a keto diet, which I really loved. About 10 months ago, my husband and I sold our house and moved to a senior living facility. At that point, I had trouble doing keto, but I modified it to do low carb eating, and I added time restricted eating and started the intensive in September. And I found it very helpful. I downed the full 50 pounds, but I haven't lost a whole lot more weight. But I realized that the stuff that I kept hearing about, well, you're not losing weight, is really the pig. So here I am.
Do you need to or want to lose a lot more weight? I just saw you on video. You look pretty healthy.
I'm comfortable where I am. It's much better than where I used to be, but I'd really like to lose another 20 pounds. But if I don't, I'm okay with that, because what's more important to me is that I respect myself and my eating habits and be able to live here where I live now without going to any big extremes or anything. So that's more important to me than anything.
So what's happened is that you stopped binging, you stopped having episodes.
Yeah, I was never a terrible binger, but I'm an emotional eater. If my emotions would go wacky, I'd go eat. Not terrible, but I like the definition of one bite off your food plan is a binge. So according to that definition, I was a binger, yeah.
By the way, I take a lot of heat for that. What I'm really trying to accomplish with that idea is to have people draw very clear boundaries on their plan and aim with perfection, but forgive themselves with dignity if they miss. Because I always think that, like, if you're an Olympic archer, you have to know where the bullseye starts and ends. Otherwise, you don't have something to aim for. And then if you miss it, in what direction, by how much, then you get very specific feedback. People are frightened of that idea because they've been taught to aim at a fuzzy target. And my grandfather said, if you don't know what you're aiming for, then you're going to wind up hitting something else. So.
Exactly. Well, it helped me a lot because one of the reasons I hesitated to join the intensive was because I wanted it to not conflict with my Christian values and principles. The archer target, it really aligns with that.
How so?
Oh, because that is the definition of sin, is missing the target. There's some Greek word called I don't know, I'm not a Greek scholar, but it starts with an H. And it means missing the target. In the Christian sense, it's the target of God's perfection and God's holiness. But in this sense, it's missing my rules. It aligns with that.
In Christianity, if you happen to miss the target, are you then supposed to just listen to Satan for the rest of the day?
No. You're supposed to confess and repent and go the other direction, which really works with this as well.
That's why people are afraid of the one bite is a binge. Their inner food monster has told them that the moment they take one step outside their plan, that all bets are off and they should just keep sinning.
Right. Well, yeah, yesterday I had a really bad day starting the evening before that. And I was in that, you're terrible, can't do this, other people can do this, and you can't kind of message. And till about 10 o'clock last night, all of a sudden occurred to me that I just needed to forgive myself with grace. I did the burden was off. And I realized that the whole message all day that I'd been listening to was also the pig. So it took the whole burden off my shoulders and I'm back on track.
So what's been the result of like respecting yourself with your food choices and knowing how to get back on track? It sounds like you're experiencing the benefits, but could you delineate that a little more for me, give me a little more dimension?
Sure. The benefit is that the longest time I've had struggling was really yesterday. And that was like 24 hours. And other than that, I've really been on an even keel. I've been much more emotionally stable and happier and freer than I have been before. And there isn't the pressure. This is my life now. I feel free and it's just really good. It's clarity about who I am and where I'm going. And it's more affected that I'm the kind of person that I want to be rather than dieting or getting to a certain weight.
What happened yesterday?
Started the night before. As I said, we live in a community. Right now, we're in the independent living side, I hope for several years. And we eat in a dining room several times a week with other people. And I got stuck eating with people who I ended up having to take care of. The woman had had a stroke. She was very hard to understand. And there hadn't been a pianist, which I had been expecting for the evening. And it just turned out not to be a good night. There was chocolate lava cake with ice cream on the menu. And I ate it and felt bad about it because it was a way to take care of myself rather than being taken care of someone else.
I see.
Soothing the disappointment. And that started the downhill spiral. Then yesterday was one thing after another where the circumstances got out of control. And then I started telling myself these messages that, you can't do this. You might as well eat it now. All of the traditional kind of pig messages. And finally it was let it go, move on.
Your pig told you that only way to soothe the disappointment that you were feeling about the evening that you were looking forward to was to have the chocolate lava cake. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
And therefore you should break the rules and binge now. If you had to refute that now, if you were to go back and look at that, and what would you tell your pig?
Well, I recognize that the pig is a ventriloquist and he keeps trying to put words in my mouth and thoughts in my head. And I don't always acknowledge that it's him. I think it's me. I think I really want that. And so recognizing that he's speaking and it's not me and saying, I hear you. It's you, you piggy. You go back in your cage and you shut up. This isn't going to help me. It's not going to make me feel better. And it could start a downward spiral I don't really want. So now I play Whack-A-Pig because I love the game Whack-A-Mo.
I love that game too. That's really funny. The amusement park game, right? Where they just keep on popping up.
Yes. My husband said to me, the pig is toast. When my kids were real little, taking them to this restaurant they liked by playing Whack-A-Mo. And now I play Whack-A-Pig. And the pressure that the pig creates is relieved by doing a refutation. And I didn't understand it, but I totally understand it now. That pig is coming up out of those chutes and I whack them down. And so I do the refutation, whack. That helps a whole lot.
Can I ask you a couple of questions about that refutation?
Sure.
Was eating the chocolate lava cake the only way to relieve the disappointment?
No. It is my goal living here to be kind and serve other people because I am one of the younger people living here. This was an opportunity. This was a really nice lady. She just needed help with her language skills because of her stroke. I have lots of other nights and lots of alternative ways to have a nice evening. The lava cake didn't make me feel better. It was good. Don't get me wrong. It was really yummy, but it didn't make me feel better. And feeling better would be acknowledging that sometimes you just have to put aside your own needs and serve other people.
So you could have focused on your mission, taking care of this nice lady and feeling inspired and proud of doing that and feeling like you were a humble servant. I want to ask you a crazy question. Do you always have to relieve disappointment?
No. And I've appreciated that when I've heard your recordings with other people. You don't always have to be happy. You don't always have to have your way. I don't think it's a crazy question at all. I really like the question. I'm a retired marriage and family therapist myself.
Oh.
And so I really understand that whole idea of you change your expectations and you're a lot happier. So I could have just changed my expectations for the evening.
Right. The pig was telling you that being disappointed was intolerable, that you're always supposed to be happy.
Right.
And therefore, since you weren't getting the pleasure you were promised, that you had to take pleasure in the chocolate lava cake.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you don't always have to have pleasure. That throws a lot of people for a loop
Hmm.
because it seems reasonable that the disappointment is too much and you can't tolerate it. But when the pig realizes that you're willing to tolerate any level of disappointment, then it loses a lot of its power.
Right. And it changes who you are and what you think is important in the long run. I still do modified keto, low carb, and I still do time restricted eating, and I find them really, really good. I found I don't have to eat all the time. And I originally started off hungry, and as people say, I white knuckled it for a while, but I don't anymore. I find if I eat too much during the day, I'm actually worse off. I'm actually hungrier. And so my thoughts about what I need have changed a lot. I don't need to eat all the time. I don't have to have certain food, and I don't always have to be happy.
Is there anything that you'd want people to know about your experience that was helpful, or anything that you were frightened about that you want to help them understand? Anything else I should have asked you that I didn't?
Other than it's been fun, it's been a good experience. It's been really fun. And I really enjoy listening to a lot of the recordings. I found when I needed help, it was available. I could tune into a live recording or I could listen to one. Didn't make that much difference whether it was my problems being specifically addressed or someone else's. And there's so many solutions to the problems of what I used to think were my eating problems. There's lots of insteads. It's one of my favorite words is, what are you going to do instead? And there's lots of insteads available. Instead of this, I'm going to do this.
For example?
Well, because of where I live, I can't always plan perfectly. Especially now they have supply chain issues as a result of COVID. And so the menu isn't as predicted all the time. And I have to make an instead choice of different food. And that helps. One day I really had a problem and I made a call and suggested that I do a 60-second or 2-minute refutation right when I'm facing some decisions where I've been thrown off my plan. And so that was a good instead of saying, well, now I'll just eat. Go ahead and binge, as the pig would say, which I've labeled gab, go ahead and binge. I do a little refutation immediately and come up with an instead. How am I still going to stay on my plan?
Even the 60-second refutation is an instead, because the pig says you don't have time to do a refutation. They take 5 or 10 minutes, and who's going to do this for the rest of their life? But you could say instead, you could just do a 60-second refutation and it points you in the right direction as opposed to running in the wrong direction.
Right. But I do find that a bigger refutation is really helpful too, because as I say to the pig, I do a lot of preemptive refutations in the morning, planning for my day. Mm-hmm. And in the morning, when I hear the way the pig is planning to disturb my day based on what's on my schedule, I can say, and what else? And what else? And what else are you going to do? And so that's really helpful. I really appreciate your heart for helping people. I have that same desire. And there's so many people living here who are old. I mean, there's a 48-year age range over 65. We got a lady that's 103. But there are people here who have all kinds of metabolic diseases because of the way they eat. And I'd like to be able to find a way to help. I'm not sure I want to be a therapist again or a coach for pay, but I'd really like to help the people here who are looking for change. I'm 72, and I hear people in their 50s and 60s, well, this is it. I got to do it now or never. Well, that's not true. You can do it if you're 90, because it's not a matter of dieting. It's not a matter of food. It's a matter of being in control of your life.
Very nice to talk to you, Cynthia.
Nice to talk with you. Thanks for the call.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.